Ah, a minor slip on a beginner's ski slope. A routine hospital visit for a minor stroke. When we watch our favorite British actors command the screen, they feel permanent. We assume their off-screen lives possess the same protected plot armor as their characters. But the human body doesn't care about box office records or a 50-year acting legacy. Today, we are looking at 15 times a medical reality abruptly cut the cameras. These are the sudden, unscripted physical declines that forced iconic performers to unexpectedly leave the stage. Number 1. Natasha Richardson, a beginner's ski slope at the Mont Tremblant Resort in Quebec. Natasha Richardson didn't fall from a perilous height, and there was no high-speed collision. She just took a tumble during a routine skiing lesson. For anyone who grew up watching her effortlessly command the screen in The Parent Trap, the idea that such a minor slip could be fatal feels entirely disconnected from reality. And for a few hours, it seemed disconnected for her, too. She stood up, reportedly laughed about the fall, and returned to her hotel room. She even waved off the initial offers of medical attention. This highlights the deeply deceptive nature of an epidural hematoma. In medical terms, patients often experience what is called a lucid interval. It is a brief, quiet window where the person feels perfectly fine while internal pressure slowly builds. By the time the severe headaches began later that afternoon, the condition had already progressed beyond intervention. Within 48 hours, she had passed away. The unsettling aspect of Richardson's story is the sheer banality of the accident. As an audience, we are conditioned to expect cinematic conclusions for movie stars, either prolonged, documented health declines or highly dramatic incidents. Her situation completely bypassed that expectation. It serves as a very quiet, grounded reality check about human fragility. It shows how a completely ordinary afternoon, just a slight misstep in the snow, can quietly escalate into an irreversible medical crisis before anyone even realizes the danger is there. Number 2. Sean Connery. Sean Connery spent his entire career projecting absolute control. As the definitive James Bond, his public image was built on sharp wit, physical dominance, and a mind that was perpetually 3 steps ahead. He was portrayed as the man who could outsmart any trap and handle any situation with effortless precision. That makes the reality of his final years distinctly hard to reconcile with his on-screen persona. Connery didn't face a visible adversary at the end. Instead, he developed dementia, a condition that slowly erases a person's memory and awareness. For an actor whose identity relied so heavily on clarity and command, the loss of his cognitive faculties was a quiet dismantling of the very traits that made him famous. His widow later shared that the disease took a heavy toll, eventually stripping away his ability to even express what he wanted. The suddenness in his story wasn't a physical collapse, but rather how thoroughly the sharp, commanding presence vanished behind the veil of the disease long before his actual passing. While the official medical records noted pneumonia and heart failure, the underlying erosion of his mind was what truly defined his later life. He passed away in his sleep in the Bahamas at age 90. It was a physically peaceful conclusion, yet it forces an uncomfortable realization about how cognitive decline operates. It spares absolutely no one, quietly disarming even those who seemed entirely untouchable for half a century. Number 3. Elizabeth Taylor. By the time Elizabeth Taylor reached her later years, her medical file was arguably thicker than her acting resume. The public had grown entirely accustomed to her cheating death. She had already survived a brain tumor, skin cancer, a fractured spine, and a bout of pneumonia in the 1960s that was so severe, several major newspapers had already pre-written her obituaries. She seemed physically invincible, insulated by her immense Hollywood power and a famously glamorous lifestyle. The paradox of Taylor's final decades is what makes her physical decline so compelling. While her own health was constantly deteriorating, she became one of the most aggressive and vocal advocates during the peak of the HIV/AIDS crisis. She was relentlessly lobbying for funding and fighting for the lives of others, even as she was frequently confined to a wheelchair herself. Ultimately, she wasn't taken by a sudden accident or a fast-moving cancer, but by congestive heart failure. It is a condition where the heart slowly loses its mechanical ability to pump blood efficiently throughout the body. There is no cure, only management. For a woman defined by her massive, larger-than-life energy, someone who commanded unprecedented million-dollar salaries for films like Cleopatra and lived under the constant glare of flashbulbs, it was an incredibly slow, exhausting winding down. Her body simply gave out after a lifetime of constant medical warfare. It is a striking reality that behind the diamonds, the headlines, and the definitive Hollywood royalty status, her longest-running battles were entirely biological. She spent her life projecting absolute glamour to the cameras, while quietly enduring a level of physical punishment that few could actually sustain. Number 4. Richard Harris. Richard Harris spent the early 2000s experiencing a massive, highly visible career renaissance. After bringing a weary gravitas to Gladiator, he stepped into the robes of Albus Dumbledore, reluctantly taking the part only because his young granddaughter insisted. He quickly became the definitive comforting face of the Harry Potter franchise for a global audience. That comforting illusion makes the reality of his sudden exit particularly jarring. Harris wasn't quietly winding down his career, he was right in the middle of anchoring a cinematic juggernaut. In August 2002, after being hospitalized with what was initially thought to be a severe chest infection, he was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, an aggressive cancer originating in the lymphatic system. The most striking aspect of this timeline is the friction between the actor's sheer willpower and the rapid progression of the disease. Harris was notoriously stubborn and fiercely protective of his work. Even as his physical condition deteriorated in the hospital, he reportedly contacted the studio executives, instructing them not to recast his role because he fully intended to be on set for the third film. He never got the chance, passing away just 2 months after his diagnosis. His situation presents a distinct type of career interruption. Usually when a prominent actor steps away, there is a natural concluding point to their filmography. With Harris, the illness forced a very public, midstream halt. Millions of viewers had to process a stark medical reality, as the sudden decline of the man behind the character forced an unfolding fictional universe to abruptly change its face. Number 5. Graham Chapman. Comedy is entirely dependent on timing. For Graham Chapman, the central authority figure in Monty Python's surreal universe, the timing of his physical decline carried a grim, almost unbelievable irony. He passed away on October 4, 1989, exactly 1 day before the 20th anniversary of the comedy troupe that defined his career. Chapman had already spent his 30s surviving severe alcoholism, an addiction he eventually managed to overcome. By his late 40s, he appeared to have stabilized his life. But in late 1988, a visit to his dentist revealed a malignant tumor on his tonsil. By the time it was fully diagnosed, the cancer had already spread to his spinal cord. The speed of his physical deterioration was jarring. Within a year, he went from making public appearances to losing his mobility as the spinal tumors progressed. What makes Chapman's situation unusual isn't just the aggressive nature of tonsil cancer, but the bizarre collision of his medical reality with a major cultural milestone. His former colleagues were actively preparing for a highly anticipated reunion broadcast when his condition rapidly worsened. Instead of stepping onto a stage to be celebrated by millions, Chapman's sudden absence became the defining narrative of the event. It is a stark reality that a man who spent his entire professional life subverting expectations and mastering absurd humor was taken by a disease that engineered the most cruelly timed exit imaginable. Number 6. Terry Jones. If there was a defining trait to Terry Jones's career, it was his sheer, articulate noise. As a founding member of Monty Python and the director of Life of Brian, he was a man who weaponized language. He built a towering reputation not just as a comedian, but as a prolific writer, a passionate historian, and a performer who could deliver complex, rapid-fire dialogue with absolute precision. This makes the specific nature of his decline feel exceptionally cruel. In 2015, Jones was diagnosed with primary progressive aphasia, a severe variant of frontotemporal dementia, or FTD. Unlike more common forms of dementia that primarily target short-term memory first, this specific neurological condition directly assaults the language centers of the brain. The medical reality of this diagnosis is deeply unsettling. The disease didn't immediately erase his awareness or his intellect. Instead, it systematically dismantled his ability to communicate. It stripped away his capacity to speak, to write, and eventually to string together even basic sentences. For a man whose entire professional identity was anchored in his extraordinary command of words, the condition effectively trapped a highly active, brilliant mind inside a body that could no longer express itself. He continued to make public appearances early in his diagnosis, often smiling alongside his former castmates, but his increasing silence was undeniable. When he passed away in 2020, it wasn't a sudden physical collapse, but the culmination of a painfully slow withdrawal. It is a sobering reflection on how terrifyingly targeted a medical decline can be, quietly taking the exact instrument a master craftsman relied on the most. Number 7. Maggie Smith. The camera routinely captured Maggie Smith as a figure of absolute, unshakable authority. Whether she was walking the stone halls of Hogwarts or delivering cutting remarks in Downton Abbey, she projected a sharpness that seemed entirely impervious to physical weakness. That makes the reality of her time on set in 2007 particularly striking. At 73 years old, right in the middle of filming Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. The polished, formidable presence she maintained on screen was in direct contradiction to her medical reality. She was enduring aggressive chemotherapy, a grueling process that she later admitted left her feeling completely flattened. She was managing profound exhaustion, the loss of her hair, and the punishing physical toll that accompanies radiation treatment. Yet, the massive studio production didn't halt. She was fitted for a wig, stepped back under the intense, exhausting heat of the set lighting, and continued to project the exact same commanding aura her audience expected. The viewers saw a powerful protector. They had no idea they were watching a woman pushing through severe physical distress just to remain standing for a take. Smith ultimately survived the cancer, continuing to act well into her late 80s before age naturally took its toll. Her situation offers a very different perspective on illness in the film industry. It highlights the immense, invisible discipline required to preserve a cinematic illusion. It proves that sometimes an actor's most demanding performance is simply hiding how much their body is breaking down out of frame. Number 8. Roger Moore. Roger Moore's iteration of James Bond was never the bruised, bloody brawler. He built an entire legacy on being perpetually unruffled. Whether defusing a bomb or stepping out of a high-speed chase, his on-screen persona relied on a perfectly tailored suit and a casually arched eyebrow. He was the cinematic embodiment of a man who never let the audience see him sweat. That dedication to maintaining a polished exterior makes the reality of his final days quite striking. In early 2017, the actor faced a dual diagnosis of liver and lung cancer. These are notoriously aggressive diseases that rapidly dismantle the body's core systems, causing severe fatigue and drastic physical changes. Yet, outside of his immediate inner circle, the public was entirely unaware. There were no leaked hospital photos or press releases about a declining condition. His family later noted that the illness progressed with startling speed. Moore retreated to Switzerland, shielding his medical reality with the exact same tight control he applied to his public image. When his passing was announced in May of that year, the dominant reaction from the media was genuine surprise. His approach to this diagnosis reveals a lot about the era of stardom he represented. For a performer who spent decades mastering the illusion of the untouchable, sophisticated gentleman, allowing the world to watch him physically waste away was simply out of the question. He managed the devastating reality of terminal cancer by ensuring the curtain dropped long before the audience could see the vulnerability underneath. Number 9. Bob Hoskins. Bob Hoskins was a deeply kinetic actor. If you look at his defining performance in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, his brilliance wasn't just in the dialogue, it was his intense physical energy, constantly throwing himself around a set to react to animated characters that weren't actually there. He projected a bulldog-like intensity on screen, a working-class grit built on constant, restless motion. That makes the specific nature of his 2012 retirement profoundly difficult to process. Hoskins was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, a progressive neurological disorder that specifically targets the brain's ability to coordinate movement. For a performer whose entire method relied on explosive physicality and split-second timing, Parkinson's operates as a direct, mechanical attack on their primary instrument. The condition creates stiffness, severe tremors, and a slow, unavoidable loss of bodily control. The diagnosis forced him to step away from the camera entirely, abruptly halting a highly active career that had spanned 4 decades. However, the neurological decline was not the direct cause of his death 2 years later. Hoskins passed away in the hospital from a severe bout of pneumonia. In the medical reality of Parkinson's, pneumonia is a very common, yet rarely discussed, complication. As the nervous system slowly weakens the muscles required for effective swallowing and breathing, the lungs become highly vulnerable to sudden infections. It is a quiet, systemic failure. For an actor entirely defined by his loud, unapologetic, and highly physical presence on film, his final exit was ultimately dictated by a secondary respiratory infection that simply overwhelmed a compromised body. Number 10. Ian Holm. In the opening scenes of The Lord of the Rings, Ian Holm delivers a highly specific description of aging, stating that his character feels thin, sort of stretched, like butter scraped over too much bread. It is a brilliant piece of dialogue delivery, but it also carried an unpublicized parallel to his actual physical state. By the time he stepped into the role of Bilbo Baggins, Holm was already navigating the effects of Parkinson's disease. The mechanics of modern film acting require immense, microscopic physical control. A performer has to hit exact floor marks, maintain steady eye lines, and replicate subtle facial twitches across dozens of repeated takes. Parkinson's is a progressive neurological condition that specifically dismantles this exact control. It introduces involuntary tremors, muscle rigidity, and a fundamental misfiring between the brain's commands and the body's movements. Yet, unlike other performers who were forced into immediate retirement by similar diagnoses, Holm simply kept working. He continued to take on high-profile roles for over a decade, while quietly managing a condition that actively fought against every movement he made. The global audience saw a seasoned, deeply expressive character actor navigating massive, big-budget sets. They were completely unaware of the intense physical concentration required just to keep his hands still for a simple close-up. He passed away in 2020 from complications related to the disease. It wasn't a sudden collapse, but rather a long, attritional winding down of his nervous system. His later filmography offers a striking reality about physical endurance in the industry, showing how a performer can quietly outwork a deteriorating body for years, right in the glaring light of global cinema. Number 11. John Hurt. John Hurt possessed a face and a voice that seemed entirely designed to convey survival. Whether he was navigating the bleak, industrial terror of Alien or wearing the heavy, suffocating prosthetics of the Elephant Man, he made a career out of playing men pushed to their absolute physical limits. He was the cinematic embodiment of endurance. That makes his reaction to a terminal diagnosis in 2015 so fascinating to analyze. Pancreatic cancer is one of the most notoriously aggressive and fast-moving diseases in modern medicine. It fundamentally compromises the body's ability to process energy, creating a level of profound exhaustion that usually forces immediate hospitalization or retirement. But Hert's response to a rapidly closing timeline was entirely counterintuitive. He simply kept working. Instead of retreating from the public eye, he treated a highly lethal illness as if it were merely a scheduling conflict. While actively undergoing demanding medical treatments, he continued to accept roles, appearing in major productions like Jackie and Darkest Hour. There is a stark reality in realizing that the man delivering sharp, commanding dialogue on screen was actively dealing with a collapsing biological system between takes. His passing in early 2017 didn't interrupt a fading career. It forcibly halted a man who was still in motion. It highlights a completely different approach to the inevitable. For Hurt, stepping away to rest simply wasn't part of the equation. He spent over 5 decades accumulating more than 200 screen credits, and while he could not stop the physical decline, he firmly refused to let the disease dictate when his time on set would fade to black. Number 12. Pete Postlethwaite. Steven Spielberg famously described Pete Postlethwaite as the best actor in the world. He possessed a face that looked like it had been carved directly out of a cliffside, weathered, heavily textured, and projecting an aura of rugged permanence. On screen, whether navigating the intense family dynamics of In the Name of the Father or sitting in a corporate boardroom, he was always the anchor. He felt like the most solid, unmovable object in the room. This profound physical groundedness is exactly what makes the reality of his decline so jarring. Postlethwaite was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, an illness known for its stealth and its absolute ruthlessness. It is a disease that fundamentally disrupts how the digestive system processes nutrients, systematically stripping away muscle and physical mass long before the final stages. The stark medical reality of his condition was captured right on film. In his final roles, specifically his brief appearance in Christopher Nolan's Inception, the physical toll is impossible to ignore. The usually robust frame had been visibly hollowed out. Yet the camera still captured a performer entirely in control of his craft, utilizing a failing body to deliver a scene of immense gravity. He didn't obscure his physical decline from the lens. He simply worked through it until he no longer could. When he passed away in early 2011, the contrast was difficult to process. An actor celebrated globally for his immense, unshakable presence was quietly dismantled by a condition that specializes in rapid, systematic erasure. It is a harsh reminder that biological realities completely ignore the perceived strength of the individual enduring them. Number 13. Tom Wilkinson. Tom Wilkinson spent a large portion of his career playing men who were either meticulously calculating their next move or slowly cracking under immense pressure. If you watch his defining performance in Michael Clayton, you see a brilliant legal mind experiencing a highly visible, methodical breakdown over the course of the film. His characters rarely exited a story without a clear, heavily foreshadowed arc. The reality of his actual passing provides a stark contrast to those cinematic structures. At the end of December 2023, after a highly respected career spanning half a century, Wilkinson died at his home. There was no publicized medical battle, no visible decline captured by paparazzi, and no prolonged hospital stay. His family released a brief statement confirming he had passed away suddenly from unspecified natural causes. When we examine the medical histories of prominent figures, we often look for patterns or extended periods of endurance. We expect a narrative of resistance against a known illness. Wilkinson's situation completely bypassed that expectation. It acts as a very grounding reminder of biological unpredictability. A performer can spend decades building an incredibly dense, celebrated body of work, appearing in everything from The Full Monty to In the Bedroom, only for it to conclude without a single warning sign. His sudden absence doesn't offer a long timeline to analyze. Instead, it serves as a quiet, abrupt full stop. It highlights the stark reality that sometimes there is no time to prepare a final public statement or orchestrate a concluding project. The biological clock simply runs out on an otherwise ordinary afternoon, cutting off a 50-year career in an instant. Number 14. David Bowie. On January 8, 2016, David Bowie released the album Black Star. To critics and the public, the highly experimental record signaled a bold creative resurgence. He appeared in the promotional videos projecting an eerie, theatrical energy. The audience naturally assumed they were watching a restless artist entering a new, abstract phase of his career. In reality, they were watching a meticulously scheduled exit. Just 48 hours after the album hit the shelves, Bowie passed away from liver cancer. The immediate reaction from the public was a sense of profound disorientation. In an era where celebrity health crises are routinely leaked and aggressively documented by the press, he had managed to keep a terminal, 18-month diagnosis completely invisible. The medical reality of liver cancer makes this level of secrecy highly unusual. It is a disease that fundamentally compromises the body's filtration system, leading to rapid, highly visible physical changes and profound exhaustion. The sheer stamina required to not only hide these symptoms from the media, but to actively write, record, and film complex music videos during the final stages of organ failure is staggering. He completely bypassed the standard narrative of a fading star. He didn't allow the illness to reduce him to a subject of public pity or a tabloid headline. Instead, he maintained absolute control over his own timeline. He quietly utilized his own physical decline to construct a final, elaborate performance, ensuring he directed exactly how and when his image would disappear from public view. Number 15. Alan Rickman. January 2016 felt like a bizarre anomaly in the entertainment industry. Just 4 days after the global audience was forced to process the highly guarded, entirely unexpected departure of David Bowie, another cinematic giant abruptly vanished without a single warning. Alan Rickman built his entire career on the concept of absolute control. Whether he was taking hostages as Hans Gruber or patrolling the corridors of Hogwarts as Severus Snape, he possessed a voice and a physical presence that demanded immediate compliance. He was not an actor associated with vulnerability. That makes the reality of his final months deeply striking. In the late summer of 2015, what began as treatment for a minor stroke led to a diagnosis of pancreatic cancer. This is the exact same ruthless, fast-moving disease that dismantled the physical health of Pete Postlethwaite and John Hurt. However, Rickman's approach was defined by absolute silence. In an industry that routinely monetizes every aspect of a performer's personal life, he chose to completely insulate his medical reality from the public eye. He didn't release health updates, and there were no farewell interviews. He simply went about wrapping up his final voiceover work and organizing his personal diaries with the same meticulous precision he brought to his screen roles. The audience had no idea that the man behind some of modern cinema's most impenetrable characters was actively navigating a rapidly closing timeline. His sudden absence serves as the definitive punctuation mark on a very specific type of cinematic exit. It forces a stark realization about the limits of public access. Rickman proved that even in an era of constant, unavoidable visibility, a true master of the craft can still manage to step off the stage and quietly fade to black before the audience even realizes the performance is over.